Hi there and welcome to the Play Creators Conference. Thank you for joining me for this deep dive into the Lamaze brand. I'm delighted to be joined by Julie Gwaltney, Director of Boys and Girls Toys at TOMY, Lorena Montalvo, Designer at TOMY, and Stephen Reed, Lead Product Designer at TOMY. Before we dive into all things Lamaze, I thought it'd be really good to find out a bit more about your backstories and how you found yourselves in the world of toys. So Julie, if we kick off with you, how did you end up working in the toy industry? Was it a love from a young age, or did you sort of fall into it somehow?
I sort of fell into it actually. Prior to the toy industry, I did something completely different. I was a commodities trader, and then I worked in private label manufacturing. And for some reason, I don't know if I started reading up about it, but I just fell in love with the toy industry and got lucky enough to land at what was then Learning Curve at the time. That was my first gig in the toy industry.
Great, amazing. And Stephen, in terms of you as a designer, were there any other industries vying for your skills, or was it toys from the get-go?
Yeah, that's what Julie said. Is kind of like a common thing I would say with creative types. Like you do, just a lot of us just kind of fall into it, and I also kind of just fell into it as well. I was an illustration major out of art school, and I was able to take that skill set and move into holiday decor decorations. That was my first job kind of out of school. And then from there, I used the same skill set doing that to move into plush toys. So that's kind of how I got introduced into it. And I was relocated. One thing I've had to do is relocate for the toy industry quite a bit, just because the companies are scattered out throughout the US. So I was in plush toys for about 8 years. Then the financial crash of 2008 happened, and that kind of sent me into freelance design. I thought that was going to be like a short stint, but I ended up doing that for 10 years, actually. And then kind of just got this, this offer from TOMY came around, and I couldn't pass it up. So that's how I ended up here.
Amazing. And Lorena, in terms of you, how did you find, how was toys on the agenda for you?
So I also went to school for illustration too, and I've only been in the toy industry for 2 years. I basically started out of college into the toy industry, but it all started off with just internships. In my freshman and sophomore year of college, so the first and second year of college, I had an internship at a toy company. I happened upon it, and I started off in the sculpting department of all areas. And now at TOMY, I don't do sculpting, but I do more design than anything. But it's just funny. I just happened upon it. It's funny. I didn't go to school for it.
Yeah, there we go. It's amazing. A lot of people do, sort of fall into it. So so let's look at Lamaze and the brand. It's one of these brands that I didn't know too much about the origin, Julie, when we spoke a while ago. So for anyone else that is either new to it or just knows it in its current form, where did this IP come from? Where did this brand come from, and how has TOMY sort of helped develop it over the years?
Well, it's really interesting because, to your point, a lot of people hear Lamaze and they just immediately think of the toys, which is great. We love that. But Lamaze actually is a license. It's a partnership we have with an organization called Lamaze International, and they are a nonprofit organization that really focuses on healthy childbirth education. They advocate for that around the globe. Again, a nonprofit. And I think what's really cool, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but because of our partnership with them, anytime a parent purchases a Lamaze toy, they're actually helping that process. They're helping educate parents on healthy childbirth. They're making sure people have access to healthy childbirth. So I think it's really cool. It's almost like parents helping other parents in a way. So something very cool.
Absolutely. And was it a case that the brand wanted to move into toys and that's how the partnership happened, or was it more a case that TOMY saw an opportunity and a synergy to make that brand, help make the brand sort of leap into this space?
Yeah, it's a great question. The brand is almost 30 years old. I was not there at the time, but my understanding is that it was something that one of the founders of Learning Curve at the time happened upon. I don't know if it was a colleague, but they made that partnership happen. So a really cool story.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any sort of core sort of brand DNA that sort of every Lamaze product has to sort of have, or that you think when parents today who are familiar with the toys, as we've said, when they hear the brand or see the brand, is there anything you think, it's got to have this, or these are the expectations that the name sort of conjures up?
Yeah, definitely. Lamaze really was one of the very first infant developmental play toys. It's evidence-based, it's backed by science. We actually have a doctor on board who reviews every single product before it's developed, from paper all the way through, to make sure we're hitting, critical milestones, whether it's fine motor skills or, the pincher grasp. It's everything that we want to make sure that infants are hitting those key milestones. I think our mantra really for years has been the right toy at the right time. So we're really there, much like Lamaze International wants to be there through the birthing process. We want to be there for parents as their child is growing through different milestones, and really ensuring that they can have the confidence when they pick up a Lamaze toy, that if they're wanting to help their child again with fine motor skills, they'll see that symbol on the package. They know a doctor has validated it. It gives them the confidence to do that.
Yeah, amazing. And then before we dive into the design stuff and bring the other guys in, has the brand sort of changed much over the years, in the sense that where it came from was the first few years of product very closely tied to that whole space before it fully became a toy brand in its own right? And what are some of the key evolutions that the IP has gone through over the years?
Yeah, I think over time, again, always developmental in nature. Really, much of the history has been kind of soft goods at its core. We've had, different materials throughout, but soft has kind of been where we've been at in the past. We've also really focused on kind of one of our core best-selling segments is called Flip and Goes. So it's something that parents can take on the go with them, really kind of innovating in that category. And then we expanded into other things over time, whether it's play gyms, tummy time play, things of that nature, bath. And we've also evolved in terms of partnerships with other people. We've done co-brands with Disney's. We did The Incredibles, we did The Lion King. And of course, our TOMY's longstanding partner, John Deere, we did have a co-brand, I do today, with them as well. So that has definitely evolved. I think the biggest evolution probably is the fact that when we started again with that partnership with Learning Curve and Lamaze, it was a small beginning, if you will, but it is a global omni-channel brand of business today. So again, nearly 30 years, we're very excited about where we've been and excited about where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Stephen, in terms of from a design point of view, like Julie said, with all the considerations that the brand has to hit, what is it like as a brand for design for? Is it, do you find, because this isn't just, not that there's just a thing, but there isn't just fun at the heart of this. There's a few more layers to consider. So what's it like from a design point of view?
Yeah, I would say, as Julie mentioned, that Lamaze has generally, until recent times, been just like a soft toy kind of product, where we really, and that fit well with my background, because I come from plush toys. So one thing we really try to strive for is to hit these developmental benchmarks. We want, if a toy is going to be made of soft fabric, we want to have a bunch of different varieties of fabric on there. So it's kind of like a developmental, tactile kind of sensory experience. So you can touch a little bit of satin, and you can touch a little bit of like a furry cohair, and that's really engaging for the baby. There is kind of like a uniformity throughout all the Lamaze toys. They all have these like really big, cute, engaging eyes, very appealing. That's something that's kind of unique to the brand that really stands out in the market. And other than that, we one thing I would say Lorena and I have really tried to do in recent times is just kind of like bring like a better color cohesion to everything. There's a lot of different fabrics and patterns to use, and we've really tried to use our design sense to really just from a visual aspect, make it look as eye-catching and appealing to a consumer as possible. Yeah. We've really tried to be conscious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that all comes through totally. And Lorena, in terms of from a design point of view, it's different from a lot of other brands, in the sense that there's certain trends. If I'm working on action figures, or if I'm working on sort of arts and crafts, there's certain trends that as a designer I can pull in and lean on, especially if I'm working on brands as well, licensed product. Whereas from the outside, this seems like there's you haven't got some of those core things as a designer I can lean on or use for inspiration. So from your point of view, when you're creating for this brand, what are those sort of first steps look like? What do they look like when you're creating for it, and why, as a creative person, as a creative designer, does it sort of scratch that itch for you?
Well, I guess like for Lamaze especially, like just overall, just before we begin designing, like that core thing that we think about when designing for this, it's really about like the interaction between the parent or guardian of baby, and like the toys are just much more than just sit and watch me toys. They have to be engaging. It has to be an interaction has to exist between the parent and the baby. So that's really important. That's kind of like where we start off with. But in terms of like trends and stuff, there's a person on the team, her name is Lizette Bodino. And we really go towards her when it comes to like trends and what colors are we gonna go for. So really we start off with her and kind of take her research. And also Julie also gives us a direction we have to go as well. So we kind of take those two and the marriage between the two. We really just go from there. And so with that direction, that really gives us a great path to go. So it's not like, you know, we can go, if they give us a brief, right, and we can go anywhere with it, we'll take it anywhere. So they really just hone it in and give us the right path to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. And a knowing laugh there from Julie as well. And Stephen, I'm interested in terms of if we look recently in products that have come out recently, do you think there's any recent launches that you think are a really good example of summing up exactly, you know, what is great about the brand and why it's still, you know, full of life after 30 years?
Yeah, I would say just last year, we really did something new for Lamaze, which was the launch of the Airtable Activity Center. And that has never been done in the brand before. The team thought it was the perfect time to do something really large like an activity center and really make a statement with it. And in a brainstorming session, the idea came up for just like, you know, what if you know, everybody has fun with an air hockey table. What if you could take the idea of an air hockey table and reduce that down to like the toddler, you know? And we looked around. I mean, we saw a lot of like things that involve like activity centers that involve water and sand and outdoor play, but nothing that was like an air hockey table. That was, you know, so we were right there. We were just like, that's a great idea to try to pursue.
Yeah.
So it sounded really unique and fun, and we just kind of ran with it. And we thought that we could really load this thing up with just all this Lamaze developmental features that you could possibly put into it. You know, there would be, you could add textures, you could add a bit of fabric, even though this is mostly plastic toy. We had like fabric seaweed, so there's still kind of like a homage to the Lamaze brand. It could be like a sensory experience with music. You could have like parent-child interaction. You could have like maybe older brother, you know, toddler interaction. There was like a little bit of a grow with me aspect to it too, that for the really young child, it could be a floor toy. And then there were like legs that you could stand up. And as a child kind of learned to stand up, they could still play with this Airtable. Like, you know, you're like expanding the longevity of the item. Yeah. And it was really fun. I mean, it was really, it won like Julie can probably talk about some of the awards it won, but it really made a statement in the industry. Throughout that entire year, we just kept hearing about how great this Airtable, you know, was being received.
Yeah, amazing, great stuff. And then Lorena, on that as well, is that an example of why it's an exciting brand to design for, in the sense that where you can actually stretch the brand, you know, like you say, never gone into that space, and looking ahead, there could be other areas that brand, do you think it's great that as a brand you can pull it in certain different directions?
Yeah, definitely. Especially now more than ever with Julie, and you know, with our creative directors as well. You can really take the brand anywhere. Now that we're in, like, I'm going a little bit ahead here, but now what we're designing towards, it's much more different. It's much more fresh, clean than we've ever done before. So definitely just the fact that they give us these, it's not necessarily parameters. They've really widened the possibilities that we can reach to. That's what makes it really exciting.
Yeah, amazing. And then Julie, we mentioned a bit there, but it is getting a slight rebrand in terms of, you know, a bit of freshness to it. What can we talk about that? And I suppose why was now a good time for you guys to sort of have a slight new look for Lamaze?
Yeah, well, as mentioned, we're approaching almost 30 years in this category, which is fantastic. Really speaks a lot for the numerous people over the years who have worked on the brand and contributed to it, which is great. We started to take a look at, you know, what was happening in the marketplace. To Lorena's point, you know, was that bringing the research in? And we also did some consumer research and just wanted to get a checkpoint again, because we're approaching this anniversary how are consumers feeling about Lamaze? And we asked them, what are we doing well, and what are some things we can improve upon? And from that, we learned a lot of great stuff. We've taken that information and we've not only put it into our product efforts for a new 2022 refresh, which is very exciting, but we're also putting it into how we communicate with parents. We will be launching a new brand community for Lamaze, which is going to be a great chance for us to not only interact with our consumers directly, but also to give them a space where they can interact with other parents too, which we're really, really excited about. It's really taking that Lamaze community, the developmental play, the expertise, all of that to a new level, but also adding a little bit of fun, because this is all about toys after all, right? So we've been great at talking about that developmental aspect and the evidence behind it, and why this toy is great for your child and for you. We want to take it to the next level and talk about how not only that it's great for your child's development, but it's also super fun and interactive and a great chance for you to bond with your baby, which is something Lamaze, has been important to us for quite some time.
Yeah.
So that the team has done a phenomenal job coming up with a fresh new look. I can't wait for people to see it. Teasing a lot here. There's more to come. We can't reveal everything today, but great things are coming from Lamaze, and we're really excited about the future.
Amazing. No, we'll keep our eyes peeled for all that. Sounds exciting. And then for any inventors that are watching and that will obviously know about the brand and maybe being excited by the brand in terms of how you guys are talking about it from a design point of view, is it a brand that inventors have opportunities in? Should they, when they're pitching stuff for TOMY, should they be bringing Lamaze style concepts to fit in with the brand?
I would say most definitely. We're really open to a whole, any and every idea, even ideas that may not be initially geared towards toddler. There may be something there that could be like scaled down to a toddler, like an air hockey table, for instance. You wouldn't necessarily think that's baby, but you can take that and then just kind of make it work for the age range. So definitely open to seeing all sorts of different inventor items. We're really trying to hit on a bunch of different play patterns as well. So for different milestones, especially if it's sorting, if it's stacking, if it's put in, take out, you name it. So it's always fun to review them too. Have a good time.
No,
Sure.
absolutely.
I would just add, if I may, just add to that to Steve's point about play patterns, just for the inventor community as a whole, you may know, X about Lamaze, and we've had some great inventor relationships in the past. I think what we're moving to in the future is going to open the door for some folks to be really creative. And maybe if they thought, no, that's probably not Lamaze, I'm not going to submit it or reach out, they might want to change their thought about that.
Amazing, great stuff. I'm sure their interest would have been piqued by that. And then Julie, following that, I just wanted to ask, there's a lot of brands in this space that launch every year. Some stick around, some don't. And it's a very tough part of the industry to totally get right and to create these evergreen sort of success stories. So I'm intrigued from your point of view, what do you think it is that has enabled it to, have the legs that it has and to be still relevant and as big as and as popular as ever, sort of 30 years down the line? Do you think there is something in the design, in the look, in the relationship to the original IP? What do you think it is that has enabled it to thrive for such a long time?
Yeah, I definitely think there's the hook in terms of the developmental aspect. It's legit, with Lamaze, and I think that really comes through to people. I think the brand has also had a lot of great caretakers along the way. Again, 30 years, there's been so many designers, marketers, whatnot, that really, it's our baby. And I think, along the way, TOMY has done a great job of taking care of that and ensuring that we're living up to the expectations of the consumer, doing things like what we're doing now. Let's go out and ask the consumer. And if we're not meeting their needs, let's pivot and let's make that change. And I think that's what's occurred over time. And again, we've had global support, which is great. So
yeah, amazing. And then before, I think inventors listening to this will be very, enthused about the opportunities for those guys to pitch to you. And also, I think you've done a great job of explaining why for in-house designers at TOMY, it's a really exciting brand to be working on. So before we go, I wanted to sort of delve into more about the sort of ideation process and just generally how you guys, have ideas, stay creative, things like that. So Lorena, if we kick off with you, is there anything you find helps top up the tank when it comes to creativity?
So I'm fueled by everything around me. Everything and anything can inspire me. I could be at a home furniture store and just a simple gadget can inspire me just the way that it functions. No little thing can't inspire me. So I also come from a very large family, and my siblings have provided me with very many nieces and nephews that are really young and that I can really pull from them. Because they watch all these different things and you're like, why are you watching that? Why are you interested? And you ask them all these questions and they give you so much feedback that you wouldn't normally get if you weren't around kids. And it's all genuine, it's very candid. So that kind of also fuels my creativity. And just like any other creative, I also go to Pinterest or Instagram if I ever feel low and look at what other people are doing and what can I pull from that? What kind of design decisions have they chosen that I could also incorporate in my designing, things like that as well. And also I listen to a lot of music. So if I'm listening to a good beat, that can really motivate my creativity.
That's amazing. There's so much great stuff in there. Thank you for that. And Stephen, in terms of, did any of that cross over? Are you music and stuff? How do you stay creative?
Definitely, when my niece and nephew, like Lorena was mentioning family, when my niece and nephew were younger, I definitely was always, just being in toy design, I was always observant about like how they were playing, what they were playing with, what they didn't like. You know, was there maybe was the toy maybe just too and maybe the design staff thought, hey, this toy has a lot of great features, but maybe when the child was actually playing with it, maybe it was just too complicated, like they didn't understand. So I was always like cognizant of that. I'm like kind of big on nostalgia too. Like I think about things that I played with as a kid. Like I had like the entire Ewok village with every Ewok that you could possibly imagine. And there was all sorts of like fun little fidgety things that you could send them up the tree. They had like a net that you could capture things in. So I always kind of like try to think about things I played with as a kid. As far as inspiration goes, since I have an illustration background, I'm really influenced by children's books. I have like a whole library of everything from Maurice Sendak to Liv Golden books down there that I use for inspiration. Animation is another one. And just kind of like modern, like what Lorena was saying, like modern, anything you can find on Pinterest, like modern graphics, graphics from the 50s, anything that, whatever's old is new again. So you never know when some of these looks and trends will cycle back.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's put it out there. Maybe there'll be an Ewok village opportunity coming back.
It was really cool.
Down the phone to Disney, that TOMYs or Lamaze, we'll find a route in. It will come back. And then Julie, for you, in terms of obviously, you're overseeing lots of brands and working with lots of designers and stuff like that. How do you find, does that sort of fuel your creativity in terms of quite a diverse range of brands that you're working with?
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely, a lot of things that Steve and Lorena have talked about inspire me as well, but really having the opportunity to work on a bunch of different brands, it does. You can see kind of crossovers, you can think mashups, wacky things, but something, cool might come out of it. I will also say we have a great team in Japan at our headquarters who also helps us do a lot of our innovation. And you'll see some things that have come out of that team coming into our line in 2022, which we can't talk about, but it's going to be very exciting. And just in general, the design team that we have here, so inspirational, just fantastic. So you can't help but be inspired.
Absolutely. No, great stuff. Well, a huge thank you, guys. And again, I'm not alone in thinking it's going to be an exciting time for the brand moving forward. You've teased some good stuff, so we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. So yeah, thank you guys for taking time out for this, and thank you all guys for watching it. And hopefully we'll all catch up very soon. Thank you.